Hey everyone, Link here. I'm still a little sick, so don't mind my voice being off and the clips might be a little choppy, just because I need to cough. Firstly, just wanted to say thank you everyone who tuned in to my live stream for War of Champions. I ended up doing 5 different streams. That accumulated to 14 hours, which was an incredible amount. I was really lucky that my girlfriend was here, and she was able to help me entertain all of you guys and gals. So I did end up reaching 500,000 points, and my faction came in 21st, which was pretty awesome. So with that, I was able to claim Steve, the limited edition toon for the WoC players. So anyone who reached 500,000 points was able to get Steve, and then obviously the higher rank that you came in, the more S-class cards that you got for Steve as well, or at least you had an option to pick him up. There was quite a variety of different options that you could do, and I'm a little annoyed with myself because if I had spent 1,000 coins to get 2,000 Steve cards, then I could have saved some more varnish as well as 3 blowtorches, but I wasn't really thinking that far ahead. I was just expecting there to be offers for money in order to get Steve, so when the coin offers came up, I had already picked Steve up, which was unfortunate, but I still got the toon, so I'm pretty happy with that. As you see, I ended with 94 coins, so I used everything I had, basically, to get him. I was really happy with being able to get this toon. Do I think he's game-changing? No, but he's a nice takeaway from the WoC region, other than the tank that I got for getting 50,000 points. So, as you see, I was able to claim Steve, and I mentioned that I didn't find him to be, that fantastic, but he's still a kind of unique character, and it's interesting. He is an interesting toon. So a specialist skill is Firestarter, so if this character attacks a character suffering from burning, an adjacent target will be affected with a copy of that burning effect. So with this ability, because he applies a high amount of burn with his rush, you don't want to have burn mods because burn does not stack the same way that bleed does. Costing only 66 AP, Steve can apply 2,000 burn damage to one enemy for 4 turns. That enemy and all enemies adjacent get minus 20% AP. Now it's important to note that the minus 20% AP is different than other toons. Every other toon that we've had is a flat amount of AP that is drained. For example, minus 20% on a 76 AP toon would be minus 16 AP, instead of if it was minus 20 AP, it would be a flat minus 20 AP. So this minus 20% works better, in my opinion, on toons that have a high AP, so 85 AP, for example. Now, Steve's active skill is a little unique. He is one of the only toons, if not the only one at the moment, that can recover from infection, so it feels like he's a counter to Dayu, but at the same time, being a turn 3 active skill, it seems a little slow. What I do like about him is his weapon for the most part, but after some testing, I found that his weapon can be a little unreliable. With 30% attack, a medium bonus to AP when attacking, and then the unique when attacking, a better chance to recover from confuse and make a second attack at 400% damage. When I first read about Steve, I found his weapon to be a little convoluted, where he has to recover from confuse to make a second attack. It's just the way that it's worded, it makes it sound like it could be that. Thankfully, it's contrary to that. But at the same time, there is a big issue with if he doesn't recover from confuse. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of gameplay with him, and I guess Marlon and Rosie as well, because I had them both on the same team. You see right there, Steve was able to get a double attack on Ralito, and the 400% damage, Ralito has about a third of his HP gone, so it doesn't seem that effective at the moment, but you have to remember that Steve and Marlon and Rosie are tier 1 and tier 2 characters, so they are going to be getting a lot more powerful as they get leveled up. Here's an opportunity where I can kind of test the resilience and strength of his team. Now it's a little weird because Steve, of course, whenever he rushes, he just applies flat burn damage. There is no real damage that's being applied. So it's a little interesting because you can see that burn damage that's going on Pete. It's only 1,750 because I don't have the Liliths to level it up to 2,000. But as you see, it's a very nice type of burn because it's a slow burn, but it's consistent. It's pretty high, and I can kind of just leave Pete off to the side without having to worry about him. And because he died with some burn still on him, it spread to Angel, and then I was able to use Firestarter on Angel, which spread it to Rolito, who just died. So it's a nice indirect way of being able to apply damage. Most indirect ways that we have are with bleed, so having a burn toon could be useful. I'm thinking potentially on a defensive team he could work. I think one of the things that I find most unique about Steve is that his rush does no damage, like no physical damage. It does burn damage. But then his weapon can have a chance to do a second attack at 400% damage, when most double attack weapons, like the blue weapons, are 150% or 175%, or we see some other toons that can do 200% damage on a double attack. So the fact that we're seeing 400% tells me there is a lot of potential for Steve, and it would be interesting to see how he would level and how much damage he could do if he had a more consistent double attack. Now, just before this, I mentioned how I think he would be pretty good on a defensive team, and the reason I say that is because his rush is pretty fast at 66 AP. There's not a lot of toons that can recover from burn damage, so a lot of offensive teams don't have a lot of HP anyway. So if you're able to leverage that 2000 burn damage, and then the Firestarter ability helps it spread, you might have a decent chance at putting a timer on the opponent's team. Like, I'm thinking if you had Rolito on defense as the leader, and then you had Steve with his burn, so the bleed and burn kind of complement each other by doing non-direct damage. It's kind of a passive type of damage. So if you're able to control the enemy, but you have his bleed and burn, and then Steve, of course, has his double attack weapon, which can hit quite hard, you might have a decent chance at actually killing the enemy. So from these last couple raids, you see it hasn't been very fast when I've used him, but at least it's worked. What I did after this was I wanted to test his weapon a bit more to understand about recovering from confuse and if he could use his double attack on his own team or not. Because that to me is really important to know, because I would probably run a confuse resist on him instead, because he doesn't always recover from confuse, but he does have the potential to attack his own team. Like right here, he recovered from confuse, but I'm going to flee that because I want to see if there's a chance that he can attack his own team. And, you know, Priya is one of the easiest toons to use in order to test this, because it's not like she's going to kill him, but there is a chance, and a high chance, that she can trigger it because her confuse ability is very easy to apply. And right here we see Steve take a double attack out of Diego, and that's really it. Like, although I won the match, of course I won, it's a little disconcerting to know that Steve can attack his own teammates, so friendly fire is definitely on. Now in this match, Steve becomes a passenger to the match, if anything, because he ends up stunning himself off of Ajax. He does get a double attack off, so that last hit was for 1001 damage, which isn't bad, but considering Ajax just healed for 1500, it doesn't really help that Steve is just not really doing anything, and I don't have any way of recovering from confuse. Thankfully, Priya does the majority of the damage here, and I'm able to recover some bleed, of course, with Glenn. I use some control to heal myself up, and now it's just Pete that's left. I just need to make sure that he doesn't revive anyone. Steve hasn't done much this match. He's applying some burn right here, so that'll go right against Pete's HP, which is nice. But the important part here, I think, is on this next turn, I believe, where Steve gets a nice double attack, and it ends up killing Pete. He did 3,326 damage on the second attack. That was mainly because Diego had a defense down, and I think Steve still had the attack up from Glenn. Now, I'm going to make an adjustment to my team so it mimics my normal team a little more, just to show you guys, like, if Steve can actually, like, take the place of James, for example, or Princess. I won't say he'll ever take the spot of Priya, just because of how hard Priya hits, especially with the Rampage weapon. Now, so far, my overall thoughts and feelings for Steve: he's not a bad character, but he's nothing game-changing. Who knows, maybe down the road he will be more useful. but as of right now, he is kind of just like a sideline character that I'll work on, but he's not a priority toon, especially with how short we are on all the gear. I see myself honestly leveling up Marlin and Rosie before Steve, just because Marlin and Rosie uses the bandanas, which isn't the same type of gear, so it's just some level up points that I can get, and it's something easy to kind of work on. Now, so far in this raid, you can kind of see that Steve has been a little more useful. His double attack on Priya before applied a lot of damage, and the burn damage as well can be quite useful. I didn't really have to let it get to that point because of how hard Priya hits. Overall, I think Steve is an okay character. He's not game-breaking or game-changing, so don't worry too much if you didn't get him. And as always, thank you everyone for watching and listening to my video.